Time I'm going to ask Matt Chin from Troop 24 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Matt is going for his Communications Merit Badge for Troop 24, and so he's here to watch us tonight. And Mr. Chin, if you could lead us in the pledge. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and welcome to the regular school committee meeting of Monday, May 7th, 2018. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing on the matter of school choice for the 2018-2019 school year. If there's anyone who would like to come forward and make a statement with regards to school choice, please do so now. As we do with all public hearings, I'm going to keep it open for a few minutes since it's just 6:45 now, which is when it was published to start. I'll keep it open for 5 minutes, and if we don't have anyone who comes in by that time, we'll take a short recess and then go on to the rest of our meeting.
She'll get you to know. Where do you want to shoot? Come tell us. Maybe the after party. But you know what? I think I will go because it's
Okay, it's been 5 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll take a 2-minute recess and get on with the rest of the meeting. And thank you everyone for coming and watching tonight. First item on our agenda is presentation by Whitson's Culinary Group. Whitson's, as we know, is a company that provides food services to our schools here in Attleboro. And so at this time, we invite the representatives up to address the committee.
Escape. I don't know.
That's okay.
Is there a remote if you need?
Hello.
We have some samples here.
Thank you very much.
I like samples.
Thank you.
Yep. There you go. All right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You
Anybody help?
guys, you might not know what you're eating yet, right?
Thank you.
You got enough, Craig? Good?
Thank you. One more.
One more, Craig. Welcome.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
It's great to be back. Been about a year, I guess, almost. Craig, you want to, before we introduce, you want to, actually, I'll introduce. My name is John Pernier, I'm the district manager. Brian Papone, on-site director for Attleboro, and Craig Chen, assistant director / chef manager for Attleboro. And before, I guess, we start, Craig, tell everybody what you delivered.
Okay, so this is one of our newest menu items. It's the acai berry bowl. So I don't know if you're familiar with the acai berry. Very popular right now, very nutritious, high in antioxidants. So it's kind of like a smoothie in a bowl. It's basically what we kind of look at what's trending. We like to put our own twist on it. It is a complete meal. You've got your grain, you've got your fruit, you've got protein. It's got everything you need for a complete meal. And it's been very popular since we've introduced it, especially with the athletes who found it's a really nice, quick lunch that they can grab. They can also save it for later. Tons of energy after you eat one of these, you'll see. Really nice meal. So we just decided we'd bring you a sample, let you know what's new, what the kids are enjoying.
And there's some pictures inside the presentation that we took, so you can actually see the students and how they rolled it out and everything. So anyway, we'll roll through this presentation and we'll leave you some time for Q&A. I just wanted to do a quick financial overview on where we are currently in the fiscal year. We are meeting contractual budget right now, actually a little better than budget, so that's very, very healthy. We're increasing our ADP and meal counts, breakfast and lunch counts, and I'll show you that graph in a second. We also are looking at next year's budget and projecting out next year. There is no meal price increase mandated in the state formula this year, so we don't have to deal with that, and we're not including that in the budget for next year. So We'll put that one to the side this year. We're also looking at some increases next year in wages in year over year, and some rising healthcare costs, and some marginal increase in food and paper and cleaning costs for next year, which are pretty normal increases. So this is just the last 2-year daily meal participation of breakfast in blue and orange is the lunch. And you could see 16-17 versus 17-18. And the actual meal counts, this is combined paid, free, and reduced. So last year we were at 583 breakfasts a day. We're now at 607, so we are starting to creep up a little bit. Lunches were at 2,778 a day, and we're at 2,825. So we also saw some gains there. And it just so everyone understands, we don't factor any attendance into this. So this is just based on full enrollment. So that's where the percentages come from. So last year in the bid, we had proposed as part of the investment to change and redo all the cafeteria lines in the elementary school. There's 2 of them. Brian, what schools in particular do we have there?
On the left is Willett Elementary School, and the one on the right is Thatcher.
So they're all pretty similar, a little bit different sizes, and we had to finagle them a little bit to get them into space, but they're all in. They're all nice and shiny and brand new, and looks like the kids are really enjoying it. The food definitely pops inside those new wells a lot more than they did in the old wells. So the kids seem to be really enjoying that. The other thing we started, it really wasn't the investment, but this was actually the money that the program is actually generating. Is we had coolers, refrigerator merchandisers in the middle schools, all 3, that were vendor supplied by Coke, called Dasani coolers, and they're not so pretty. So with some of the monies that we've made over the last couple of years, and Mark's help, we've changed all 6 of them out. So that's exactly what you have them looking like now. So again, you have that real nice marketing look, and you know what you're getting on the outside now. The kids actually identify, you know, how things look correctly like on the outside kiosks. And then other things that we've been working on is we purchased elementary school steamers as they started to fail and they get old, and we've continued to repair and aging equipment. Brian and Craig meet with Mark on a monthly basis, give him an update, and we continually try to stay ahead of that. We're also looking at updating the POS hardware and the software technology and keeping up with all of that as much as we can to make sure that we don't have failures in the field. And then also every year we annually go for smallwares, which is different pans that we need for presentation and serving utensils and so forth. So I'll turn it over to the chefs, and then we'll talk about the food.
Okay, so this year, we had a lot of firsts this year. We brought sushi to the middle schools for the first time, which was very exciting. A lot of people tried some different things. It was all about bringing them new food, something that we hadn't seen before on that level. We brought a ramen noodle bowl to every single school. So the ramen noodle bar was basically a bunch of fresh vegetables, a nice low-sodium vegetarian broth, and ramen noodles. The children were able to pick what toppings they wanted. It was really, really nice. Kids were able to try some things, bok choy, nori, pickled ginger, things that they were just not familiar with. They were very adventurous. The ramen noodle bar was actually the most successful. It hadn't been brought to that level before, so we brought it to every single level. Every principal at every middle school came and got ramen noodles, so that was definitely something to kind of brag about.
And we'll show that picture in a minute.
Yep.
All right.
So then we have the Nutrition Safari, part of our Chef Trek program. It allows us to bring one of our corporate chefs in to come around and educate the children on the produce of the month. This particular picture here, the produce, the fruit was banana, so we did a banana orange smoothie. And what we do is just talk a little bit about it, give samples to the children. Those who could not have yogurt, we gave an alternative, non-dairy. So that was very fun. Let's see, what else?
You did the sushi. Here's some pictures of the sushi.
Yeah, so the sushi was really well received. So much that we actually put it into our Freight Express. So every time we put it in there, it sells out. Just trying to be creative and get new things, and that leads us to the acai berry bowls. So we set up a table with samples up in B2, and we got feedback from the students. They came up, they were able to try it, they were able to tell us what they thought about it, and immediately after that, it went right on the menu. So we're listening, we're bringing new, fresh ideas, and we're definitely open to more. And Brian, do you want to take it from there?
Just one, before Brian jumps in on breakfast, I just wanted to just touch on a couple of things that Craig talked about. The ramen concept was really designed for secondary students, the way we rolled it out as a company. Brian and Craig, and I have no idea why I keep calling you Keith, but anyway, Brian and Craig decided they wanted to get it down to the elementary level. So it's the first prototype that we have in Whitson's to get down to that level, and it's been successful. So now that they've sort of blazed the trail for the rest of us to get that going into that grade level, which is really unique because, especially when you're talking about 5- and 6-year-olds going through a line and choosing toppings for a ramen and eating out of a Chinese box. I mean, it's pretty neat. The other thing is we passed over the walk-in bowl slide real quick, but that's another new concept that we rolled out this year as a company and has been really, really successful. I think you guys have done it a number of times in all the schools, all the secondary schools. All right, so back to breakfast. Sorry.
All right, so some of the new elementary breakfast options that we have out there now, this couple slides ago where, you know, we're trying to increase the breakfast participation. So we've brought a few new ideas. We have these grab-and-go kits that will have, they'll have a cereal in them, a little juice box, and graham crackers, something for the for the grain component. So we've had those out there, these muffin flats, which are basically, it's a flat muffin, more of rectangular shape than your typical looking muffin. Something new I've never seen out anywhere before, so we have those out there for the kids. They seem to like them. We've offered a hot breakfast 3 times a week now at the elementary schools. Choices like French toast, egg sandwiches, and pancakes, stuff like that. So we're out there trying to increase the breakfast participation. So we're trying to keep you know, any new ideas or any new items that come to us. We're rolling them out there and trying to increase the participation on breakfast. The next slide here is, you know, there's more to come. The school year is not over yet. And we're rolling out this week and over the next couple of weeks at the middle schools a burrito bowl that Craig's going to be working on, similar to what you see at like Chipotle. You know, the kids seem to like Chipotle, so we're rolling out. I rolled it out a few years ago when I was the chef in the district, and Craig's bringing it back bigger and better than ever, you know. So he has his ideas and his twist on it, but they'll be able to get a burrito bowl. They'll have a choice of putting it into a bowl similar to what the sample is in tonight, or they can do a taco bowl. We're going to actually have the taco bowls that you make with the tortillas. So that's coming to the middle schools, like I said, this week and over the next couple of weeks. And they'll get choice of beef and pork carnitas and chicken, and then they'll have fresh salsas to top it with, and cheese and stuff like that. So just, it's kind of based on that Chipotle idea. We have a grass-fed braised short rib and smoked pulled pork items that we have now. It's all shredded, fully cooked product that we're incorporating some recipes into the menus with that as well. We have our organic products, an organic chicken sausage with apple, and an organic bean and cheese burritos that we've been featuring for a few months now in our menus. Recently, Whitson's did a recipe contest in the district called, it was for everyone, chefs, anyone that wanted to get involved, managers that wanted to put in new recipes and then hopefully incorporate them into the menus for next school year. Well, Craig won the competition with his honey sriracha chicken. These are a few of the photos on here are some of the ways that you can incorporate the chicken. You can do it with a bone-in chicken breast, or you can do it as a salad, just different implications that you can put in with this chicken. So this will be featured in our program next January. It'll be that the whole company can put out and menu on their menus for next year. But you know, Craig did win at first place, so that was great to see. So that's the stuff we have out there. I'm going to turn it over to John now to talk about the next.
So certainly we can talk about food all night, but also wanted to give you a little update and also reminders. So the slide that's up now has a couple of different apps that can be accessed by parents in the community. These have been on the nutrition landing page for a number of years now, just as a reminder that the menu, we have a mobile app on the menu, and it's a completely, you know, the menu is just, as you know, if you go on the menu, it's, you know, it's interactive, and you get all the nutrition and all the nutrients and the ingredients and everything you need for those menus. You can count calories, you can do things for special diets. And the other thing is, My School Bucks is the vehicle for the POS system that we have for prepayment, and we see that increasing every year. But that's just another reminder for parents, but that's also out there on the landing page. Meatless Monday, Craig, you want to take that one?
Okay, so we've started with Meatless Monday, which is national campaign. Whitson's has taken this on. What this means is we're highlighting a meatless item every Monday. It doesn't mean that there won't be options with meat, but we just want to show that it's there. We will feature it. We will bring it to life, and hopefully that will take off here, and we can get some people to try some meatless options, a little bit healthier, depending on what you get. So that's going to be rolling out. Actually, today was the first Meatless Monday, so more to come with that.
This is actually a campaign nationally through Johns Hopkins University, and there's a number of people and other companies that have decided to join this. And we actually decided to do this months ago, but it's each one of the directors has taken the pledge, and we've been able to get some push alerts out, and we'll continue to do that over the next couple of weeks. But this campaign will go into next school year. Okay, so we brought a sample. If you want to just turn around, guys, and you might bring it close. So what we're really working on here is trying to connect customer satisfaction on the ground with the students in the cafeteria. These kiosks, this is a sample, and actually will live in Attleboro. There is no iPad in it, so it still resides. It didn't get stolen or anything. It's here. But it'll be very, very, it'll be set up to basically go where it needs to go, at what level it needs to go at, and the boys will talk to the principals and organize and get the campaign started at the individual schools. We may incentivize the students with some sort of a raffle or something like that to get them energized. But this will be basically a survey that's designed for that particular environment. It'll be really quick, probably 10-15 seconds. I just gave you some samples of some questions. The results will be immediately, they'll be tallied, they'll come back in the office, and we'll have some measurement. Depending on how, you know, we feel about the survey results, and when we meet with Mark on a monthly basis, we'll detail that and be able to see, in talking to the administrators and also looking at their preferences, which is really the most unique part about this is what stations do they go to, what things do they like on those stations, and then, you know, do they like their, you know, do they like the cafeteria, how many times a week do they eat, and certainly getting them to have a voice. So this is the new latest and greatest thing that we have tried to really put into the system, into schools, because the overarching surveys that we've done and the campaigns that we've tried to do online for the districts, we've gotten back, you know, not really the numbers that we're looking for in comparison to the enrollment. So the measurement is really not representative of what we really need to get out of the cafeterias. So this, I think, is going to be great, and we can also tailor this any way we want and go into different environments. So I think this will really be really a help for us. The other big thing that we are going to do for next year is Whitson's is buddied up with a company called Choosy for pre-ordering food. So we're going to pilot this at the high school, and we're going to get it into the deli and into the cold deli, cold hot deli, and the salads for the beginning to start. And what it basically is an app, mobile app. It can run on your iOS, your Android, or whatever, and students will be able to, depending on the rules that we set up for when they can order and when the cutoff time is, and it'll have a customized menu. They'll be able to order, and then they'll have a designated spot in the cafeteria to come and pick up their food. As I said, in talking to the people that rolled this out a number of years ago, and then it's in its infancy, they work with Chick-fil-A now, they work with Panera, they work with a number of different companies on different levels, but we're in such a unique environment in our facilities because of enrollment and the way our facilities are lined up and the amount of time that students have to eat. That's really probably the selling point on this, is if someone does have a busy schedule and really doesn't have time to sit in the cafeteria for 20 minutes and really needs to eat, they can come in, go to a specific designated spot, pick it up, and go. The only drawback to this right now is it does not interface to the POS system per se, but when they go on the app, it will be linked to their student data information, so that the barcode prints out, the label prints out, everything prints out. So we put it right on the sandwich or on the salad, and there's no confusion as to as to who that is. So that's pretty exciting. And here we go. So there's just a sample of what it might look like on your iPhone 5, which most people, except me, I still have an iPhone 5. And the other thing we are looking at is digital signage. And why digital signage? Because it's sort of in-your-face marketing. Again, we have different facilities. We don't really have cafeterias that look like that right now. I'm sure in a few years when the high school's built that'll look really good, but we're not going to wait for that. We're looking at screen placement. We're also looking at you know, what we want to share on these screens, because not only Whitson's will control data and the content, but it also can be shared with what's going on in the district as well. And there's some of the samples of what a menu might look like for the day if a student gets to see the whole cafeteria menu. And Brian, you want to take it?
Yeah, so I'll let you know some of the partnerships we have in the community. The annual scholarships we give out to culinary students each year, and we'll be doing that again in the next week and a half when scholarship night is. So we give out scholarships to culinary students that are going on to college. The Brennan Garden Project, we started this last year, and we're going to continue with it again this year. We have been donating the plants that they're going to over at Brennan. They have a classroom over there that takes care of the garden behind Brennan, and we are going to supply them with the tomato plants and herbs and all the different vegetables and stuff. And we're actually going to get that going this week. I'm going to go out, purchase the items, and they'll begin to plant them on Friday, I believe they're doing that. So that's our second year doing that. Soup for Heat event we've been doing pretty much since we've been here for 9 years. Happens in March over at the Lawson Center, and we donate water and rolls for that event every year, and that's been going on the whole time. The Healthy Kids Day, Craig and I went, it's sponsored by the YMCA. Craig and I went there the Saturday before last over at the Balfour Park. And we did some samples of some of our organic products, and we had our menus out there, and we just get the word out there that, you know, what we're doing and stuff like that. And then every year we do the annual convocation breakfast at the beginning of the school year, which we go to every school and have coffee and pastries and stuff for the start of the school year. As far as Langwater Farms, we have a relationship with them. They're out of Easton. We get some items from them, and we menu them when we can. And then this new company, Red Tomato, is John knows more about that. It's new to me. So
It's a new partnership that we have with Red Tomato. It's actually, they're located in Plainville. If you go online, you can see exactly what they do, but it's they basically connect us to local farms and get us local when we need it. We do work with a broadline vendor, of course, that works local, but this one works more local. And so they actually have a delivery schedule set up for the fall for us right now. So we'll be getting the menu guides out to the guys to be able to interject that into our menus as well. And we thank you so much for your time. And I guess we're ready for questions, Mark, right? Anything?
Thank you very much for coming. At this point, does anyone have any comments or questions for Whitson's? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you very much for coming to speak with us this evening. I do appreciate it. Last time we had met, one of the concerns we had was the elementary school lunch lines, and I'm glad to see that that was mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. It was nice to see the new investment in the equipment. I wanted to know if you could share a little bit more about some more improvements that you may have made, and any other changes, and what outcomes you've seen since installing the new equipment, and any other changes
In the elementary schools?
in the elementary schools.
You guys talk about that?
Sure. So in the elementary schools, with the new lines, we've seen a much better flow. Children are going through the line faster. The milk is now on the line, and it's a spring-loaded system, so as it comes right up. The main focus was getting them through quickly. It's all one level. I don't know if you saw some of them. They were kind of up and down and mix match pieces. So now they're able to grab their milk, go right on through. It flows a lot smoother, and we've shaved the time off. So the children have more time to eat.
Do you know approximately how much time you've saved from last year to this year?
That I don't know. I couldn't give you an exact number.
Sure, sure.
But they're definitely sitting down a lot faster than they were.
Okay.
yeah, we had some lines out there where the milk cooler was in the middle of the line and it didn't have a tray slide. So the students would, and it was at the end of the line. So as the students were going with their tray along a tray slide, and then all of a sudden they had to pick up their tray, go in and grab their milk,
Right.
and then there was a small tray slide right where they cash at the register. So that slowed things down because there was a break in the tray slide, and now it's all one smooth line, so they can just go along, and they don't have to juggle their tray and drop in their milk and their food or whatever. So it's made it go a lot smoother in that way, and speed it up slightly as well.
And what do you see as some opportunities for continuous improvements going forward into next year at the elementary school line? And the reason why I ask is, although I have gotten some feedback, positive feedback from parents, There's also been some concerns that they may not be seeing the improvement as quickly as they would like. And I haven't been there myself, but I've had parents come to me and say that they still have some concerns with the length of time of the line. So what do you see moving forward, some additional opportunities?
I can just add a little bit from my perspective. I know that we are working at building the elementary menus with a little bit of a quicker pace to them with some more grab-and-go items that are like smoothies and parfait, yogurt parfaits that students don't have to really spend time worried about, you know, I don't want that, and the assembly piece, which I think at the younger age, that's the complication, is that students want, you know, certain things, their preferences, they don't want to see that on a tray because that they're not used to that. So they're hesitant about trying some different things sometimes. We've also talked about increasing the sampling when we can outside that environment a little bit, because you can't really sample while they're coming down the lines. It has to be done in the cafeteria and through some of these nutrition safari days that we have. We get them to try new things as well. But I think the answer to your question is we really just keep focusing on items that we can put in front of them that are really all assembled as a reimbursable meal where the child doesn't have to make those major decisions. The nice part about this equipment too is they all have cold salad bar, what they call salad bar tables. We don't really treat them as salad bars, but that's where all our vegetables and cold vegetables and fruits are. So those areas are great opportunities where we add cupped fruit, prepackaged vegetables. So again, put it on your tray. There's, you know, nobody has to use a tong or a spoon or anything like that. So
I think what I see at the elementary schools is we have three choices. First choice is always the hot entree. That is always served out of the steam table. The second choice could be a sandwich, a bagel meal, a cereal day type thing, stuff that we can pre-tray up and we have it on the line. And in elementary school, we get counts, so we know per lunch approximately how many of each choice we need to prepare for per lunch. And then the third choice is always a prepackaged salad. So choice 2 and 3 are usually already on a tray, set up, ready to go. So those students that choose choice 2 or 3, they can it's really just a grab for them and move on. Choice 1 is the only one where we actually have somebody there, a cook there, serving the food. Okay. 20 minutes is a short period of time for a lunch. I think we all know that. My point is that if the students, they're young, you know, they see stuff, they like to talk and stuff like that, so they just have to keep moving along if they can, and they do have the staff there to help them move along and make the decision, and then just continue down the line. I mean, we're right there and on top of it and serving as quickly as we can, but sometimes, you know, they're kind of looking around, you know, they just got to kind of move it along.
Right.
But I think our menu, with those two choices that are already prepackaged and they can just grab it from the counter and continue on, does help with the speed. Anything down the line, I don't have anything now that I can think of to in the future, but we can always look at it.
Yeah, food for thought, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, look forward to continuous improvements at the elementary level. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Just a comment. We recently changed our meal charge policy. Has all the staff been trained on updated on that?
No.
Not yet.
that'll be happening over the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you all for coming in.
All right,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it. It's good to keep this dialogue going so we can see the work that you guys are doing each year, the changes that students and faculty can enjoy. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you again in the near future.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Perry, around Attleboro and Student Advisory Council update.
Interviews around Attleboro right now. So for elementary schools, school council meeting for Thatcher, and that's the 8th. 16th. Term 3 ends, and that's for kindergarten only. Middle school, math MCAS, 5th and 8th, and that's that's May 8th through 9th. May 8th is PTO meeting for Brennan. May 11th, Cougar Pride breakfast, and that's for Coelho. May 11th is a color run for Wamsutta. And the 15th and 16th is science MCAS, and that's for 5th and 8th. And May 17th is Night of the Arts for Brennan. Color run for Attleboro is the 18th. Attleboro, Coelho. May 18th, 8th grade lock-in, that's for Brennan. The high school, AP testing for a couple weeks, it's May 7th and it goes away to 18th. May 8th and 10th is Pride Block pilot, so basically what Pride Block is, it's like extended advisory, and it's kind of like a distressor, or like if you need more work with certain things. So like last year, I remember we had like one, and it was if you need help with like there was like you can pick, and there's a bunch of choices. So if you need help with a teacher, you can stay with that teacher, and you can do stuff. If you just want to like relax and like play basketball or something, you can play basketball. And this is like, I want to say like 30 minutes for all this, or it might be a little bit more. And then there's also like different things, like you can make a resume. There's a help with the resume class. Or last year there was like a application thing, or beginning of the year for like Common App, things like that. But for, like if you need help with a teacher, every single teacher that like you could think of, there's extra help for them. Like for this week especially, like if there's AP ones, like I know my teacher, even though we just had the test, or other teachers, there's like other help for the AP tests if you have any more questions that you need instead of staying after school, you have the Pride Block for. And then the first is senior breakfast, and then graduation is also the first. For community engagement, May 8th is HS sponsoring If They Had Known documentary in Bray at 6:30, and Ms. Rooney also showed us that documentary prom day, and it's just a story by the kids about the dangers of drugs and alcohol, and it's just about a party and bad decisions that were made, and then like the after effects and how they're still impacted by it. And for SAC update, Representative AHS SAC at the SERSAC meeting last week voted for representatives at the meeting and elected new SAC leaders, Aiden Lancaster and Jen Larson. Congratulations. And then in the future, there'll be instruction like they did for me and Aiden. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our business agenda tonight, we'll start with the report of the superintendent.
Top, Dave.
Mr. Sawyer, when you're ready.
Right there.
Thank you, Chairman Withers.
So if we're starting with the budget request, I know there's a slide at the end for questions, so I think I'm sure people will have questions and discussion, but we'll go through the presentation and then do questions when you're through.
Sounds good. All right, so I'm going to invite the central office team up to assist. All right, so what are we going to do with this presentation? I'd like to talk a little bit about level services. I'd like to go over funding. Then I will present 3 separate budgets and then review where we are in the process at the end. So level services, again, is the term we use in which we try to estimate how much one year will cost in comparison to another in terms of keeping the same services. So that's without new additional services. I think it's really important to take a moment to point out that the act of calculating a level service estimate is, not an exact science, because no 2 years are ever exactly the same. There are too many variables that change as a matter of course for there ever to be 1 year exactly like another. So, when we take a look at 1 year to the next, we're doing our best to say, okay, let's try to compare apples to apples and say, what will next year look like that is on par with what we have this year. But there are several things that can never quite be the same. Another point I'd make out is that it is an estimate, and as such, it's our best guess on things that are not known, right? There are variables that we do not, control. Simple things like, I don't know how much it's going to snow next year, and that can have a significant impact on how much the year actually costs. So we do our best to make reasonable guesses, but how liberal or conservative we are in those estimates affects the eventual outcome. And so, that's one of the reasons why, we talk about over the course of a year, in December we had one number, we had another number in April, we got another number now. It's not that those were wrong and now we have the right number, it's that certain things become more clear as time moves on, other things, we make adjustments to in an attempt to deliver the best number that we can for the city. So, that being said, let's shift over to funding. Obviously, the most important part of this equation is the state's formula and what it produces. The preliminary net school spending requirement from the state this year represented a 4.4% increase, which is exciting considering that the number had been significantly less than that the last couple of years. But it's important to note that the city's allowable expenses increased by more than that 4.4%, and then our reimbursement from the state on charter schools went down by significantly more than that percentage. So when you put in those adjustments, the net school requirement is actually 3.9%. So there were a couple factors that contributed to the actual amount of money that we'll be seeing being less than that preliminary figure. You can further break that number down into Chapter 70 aid, which is a 5.3% increase, which again is a relief from what we've been experiencing. And then the city's minimum contribution went up by 2.1%, which certainly is within what the city would be expecting in terms of an increase. So that's what we would expect in terms of a minimum. But we're fortunate that here in Attleboro, the city has been contributing more than the minimum. And so building off of the commitments that have made by the mayor, we'll see that we've been getting $1 million from the meal and hotel tax over the last several years. The mayor has pledged to increase that to $1.25 million, which represents a 25% increase in that sum. Our half of the tax levy is $884, and that represents a 4.7% increase, so that's another increase. There are a number of small one-time sums that were added to our budget over the last couple of years for various reasons. If you give us that money and then don't give it to us the following year, that's a loss. So to give it to us once and then to honor it year after year is the only way to really make it not end up being a penalty for us. And so that figure of about just over $500,000 represents a number of things that have been done over the last couple of years that sort of add up to that figure. And that stays at 0% because it's in there to help us to not have to take a loss on that one-time help. We also are proposing that we shift $50,000 for transportation that would be added to our net school spending sum, and that's to be another $50,000 that's not required. And then Medicare, as always, is budgeted at 75. We get more than that, but it's a number that is not known, and so you have to be sort of conservative so that you're not relying on more than you're going to get. So when you add this all together, we have a commitment from the city that I think we would be reasonable to expect at $2.8 million, which is a 13.6% increase over last year. So not only did we get a sizable contribution from the state this year, but the city's also increasing, which is good news. So when you put this whole picture together, you have Chapter 70 aid going up, you have the minimum contribution going up, you have the city's funding in excess of net school spending going up, and that you put that all together and you get an increase of 4.3%. Add transportation in, And the total budget, the total funding that we would expect based on Chapter 70 and the city's commitments is that 74.6 figure, and that would be a 4.1% increase over this year.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I just one question on the previous slide, the 50,000 in transportation shift.
Yes.
Is that a definite?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
So, from here, let's talk about actual proposals. The first one is our level service proposal. We estimate our net school spending eligible budget to be 71.136. That would be a 4.4% increase. We think we need a 1% increase in transportation. You put those together, and that gives you the 74.768 number, which is a 4.2% increase. And just in comparison, as I've already stated, we would expect 74.642, 4.1%. And so we currently have a gap between level services and what the city's prior commitments would result in of about $125,000. So after months of work, we've brought the number from which was in December when we first started talking about this was a pretty significant gap to today where it's down to 125,000. But at this point, we don't think we can deliver level services for any less than that amount. And the number that we would expect in funding is a product of calculations, so that's the gap. And we would hope that with a request that the city could close that gap, the final amount.
But without getting that money, do we expect layoffs then?
If we had to, if we got the bottom number, the $71.6 million, yes, we'd have to make cuts in services to achieve that number.
Thank you.
So that was the first budget, just level service. The second budget that was asked for was our needs assessment, the needs-based budget. So a couple points on this slide. First, the idea that this district is significantly below what we need to meet the needs of our students is not a new concept. We first generated an estimate of how far off we are about 18 months ago and made it public in December of that year. So it's been well over a year that this number has been presented here and also showed up in the sustainability report. So as we discussed at our last meeting, for us to be able to say exactly how much it would be, we would need to do a recalculation. You requested that, and we did do that in the last 2 weeks based on current enrollment, based on current staffing levels, based on current cost estimates. We recalculated the whole thing. And today I want to tell you that we are $9.4 million from level services to where we believe we could deliver the kind of services that our students require. I think it's important to note that that represents 187 people. And so these are two figures that are quite large and I think deserve someone to say what exactly are we saying with this kind of a number. And I would like to take this moment to say that from my perspective, what we're saying here is not that we are asking for 187 more people. We are pointing out to this community that we are running this district missing 187 people. And that comes at a cost, both in terms of our results, but also the sustainability of the operation. We are significantly understaffed. This number represents just how significantly, and it's not possible to continue to deliver the kinds of results that we are currently at this level. That's the truth of the matter, and that's why we're working so hard to develop plans to address it in the long term. I understand, the implications of a number of this size, but I also have a responsibility to inform the community that this is a very real thing. So, to put this into perspective, we added that $9.4 million to our level service number. To run this district appropriately, I think we would need $84 million. And before anybody, again, cries that this is a ridiculous number, I would point out that that number is still $4 million under the state average. And so it's not as ridiculous as it sounds. It's actually quite a reasonable number, and I think we could deliver an exceptional district at a lower than average rate with those funds. The third request that you asked us to generate was based on priorities, and here's where I'm going to enlist the help of my team to explain where things are today and what we would prioritize if we had some of that money, but not the full amount.
So we've identified our three budget priorities for FY19. Lori, Yvonne, and Mark will speak to each of these three areas, but each demonstrate that our greatest resource is our educators and our staff, and that as our greatest resource, they are the ones that deliver the teaching and the instruction to the students. They're our greatest resource when it comes to supporting our student social emotional needs, and they're certainly our greatest resource when it comes to implementing the technology initiatives that enhance our student learning. And so as we go through each of these areas, that theme goes throughout.
And our priorities for staffing include increasing levels for general education teachers as well as our specialists. Also specifically support to help our growing ELL population so that our students can become English language proficient.
The paras, that's for middle school, correct?
Yes.
And the ELL teachers, is that district-wide, all levels?
It's district-wide, yeah.
So for our second priority, we identified the growing social emotional needs of our students across the district, as well as social emotional learning. We looked at it at each level, and then district-wide as well. So at the high school, we currently have 2 adjustment counselors for 1,700 students. We feel that we would need 2 more, 1 per house. We have 3 houses there, so we would have 1 per each of the houses, and then 1 specific to our growing social emotional behavior needs in our special ed programming. So a school adjustment counselor for that as well, because that's all shared between the 2 currently. At the middle school level, we're looking more for kind of a tier 1 support, 3 guidance counselors. I know we've talked a lot about that. That's in the strategic plan. 1 for each of the middle schools to really begin kind of that tiered 1 work around for kids making decisions, self-advocacy, the individual learning plans, beginning to do that work with our students at the middle level. At the elementary level, we currently have 1.6 BCBAs and then a full-time behavior specialist. They are pretty much attached to special ed programming, but because of the increasing needs in our general education in each of our elementary schools, we've kind of redeployed those people a little bit in their schedules and kind of put them out supporting general education for tier 2 and tier 3. We are looking to, in the future, hopefully, to meet those growing needs there in general education, develop a behavior team district-wide. Part of that would be one of the people for that would be a dedicated behavior specialist just for tier 2 and tier 3 in general education. In the ACA, we have a growing population of students who need alternative programming to meet their graduation requirements and move on to post-school life. Currently, we do not have a dedicated special ed teacher there. We would be looking for a special ed teacher there. And then from a district perspective, professional development, this year we were able to, we identified a number of professional development opportunities for special ed staff, but also just for our administrators, our support staff, and even in conjunction with the ACE PAC for our families, some social emotional professional development. We had earmarked the special ed program improvement grant. It's a federal entitlement grant. It always has been, the 274. In late November, early December, we were notified by the state as a level 2 district because of the limited money coming from the federal government that we would no longer be entitled to that money. So we had over $45,000 in professional development money earmarked for that. That's been pretty much what we've gotten in that grant the last couple of years. That grant is no longer in existence, so we encumbered that into the operating budget this year. We've already been notified for next year that we will, as a level 2, not receive that grant for next year. So there will be no professional development grant improvement for special education. So we've identified $50,000 as a need in that area.
Regarding technology, as this committee knows, through your own efforts, that the district has gone miles in establishing infrastructure to allow students to access digital curriculum and digital learning. We need funding for a replacement of the Chromebooks. Those have, life expectancy in a classroom of about 4 years, at the outside. Some classrooms 2 years, but so we need to establish hard funds for that purpose. That also applies to the Chromebooks passed out to faculty, replenishment programs for them. Increased bandwidth as we become more dependent on internet-based curriculum and learning. Speed is an essential resource. We are, again, taking incremental steps whenever we can, but to get us to a level where we'd feel comfortable for a longer term than a year, we would need some additional funding. Digital resources has to do with exploring curriculum opportunities. The curriculum office does a tremendous job. You can't even imagine the universe right now in that area. Kind of parsing and trying to identify opportunities. More funding would allow us to have a much better approach and a much more consistent approach to replenishment of digital curriculum opportunities going forward. And finally, classroom technology. That is the technology employed by the teachers through their Chromebooks for displaying information in the classroom. We ran a pilot with a kind of a smart flat screen TV that went remarkably well, but they are expensive, and we're going to continue to procure them as we can, and those will replace things like Elmos and projectors.
So if you put these 3 priorities together, that would result in a additional $1.67 million, which would be a $76.5 million request. That figure, represents what we think we would need to address our greatest challenges for next year, and would be what we would prioritize if we were looking at additional funds. So where are we in this process? We started back in December with our preliminary budget presentation. We certainly got the governor's number in January. We had our budget hearing. I made my recommendation 2 weeks ago. Since then, House Ways and Means produced their budget, and tonight, we are presenting our response to your feedback at that meeting. As for where to go from here, we are respectfully recommending that you vote tonight to approve a formal budget request for submission to the mayor. It is and has been my recommendation that figure represent a level service budget. And I will again reiterate that part of the reasoning there is that this year level services is 4%, right? 4.2. So that is a big ask in the first place. Both the state and the city are, making a notable increase in funding to make that happen. And the reason why our level services are above 40% this year is because last year, as we've discussed before, we reduced that need-based estimate from over 10 million down to that 9.4 figure by making some various moves to help us to keep things that we had and to make some adjustments and some gains along the way. But this year we have to account for those things, and so that's why we're able to accomplish a level service that maintains the gains that we've made with that 4%, and I think that needs to be acknowledged and frankly respected. So while I think it's really important that the community understands that a level service budget leaves a $9.4 million problem unaddressed, given the city's means and the fact that we are consolidating gains, I think a level service budget is appropriate. But obviously, I leave that to you to decide. After you formalize your request, the mayor then takes that under consideration and submits his budget to the municipal council. They will go through their process and approve a budget for the city. Somewhere along the way, the state will sort out its budget and finalize that. And then you will, in the end, approve the finalized budget number at the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you. So I think how I propose to do it is superintendent has recommended that we approve a budget request of level services. I'll entertain that motion. We'll get a seconded and we'll open it up for discussion and questions. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve a budget request of the level services in the amount of $74,642,706.
No.
Oh, sorry, $74,768,063.
Yeah. So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Storrs?
I do have one question. So when it comes to a full-time equivalent for a teacher, what's the estimate that you use for benefits? Because it looked like you were estimating around 50,000 per FTE. What would the benefits be?
The benefits are somewhere between 10 and 15, depending on, do they take dental, do they go family, do they go individual, is it HMO, PPO?
Because it almost seemed like that number was a little low because, the starting salary fresh out of school is around 40, and then if you add in 15K, it's starting in. My point being that isn't a low estimate.
Yeah, we're not being generous.
Not at all, and that's effectively all those positions, and there were many there, are pretty much fresh out of school level, not bringing in experienced people.
Correct.
And I thought that was important to point. I also wanted to commend you being within 1% of a $74 million budget with the $165K gap or whatever it is. As always, you do an amazing job in that, so I wanted to make that point.
One comment I wanted to make, and I think it goes back to something the superintendent said that was one of the more important things he said, is that none of this is new. The needs-based budget is something we've been discussing for a long time. It's something that we've actually made strides on, getting that number from over $10 million to 9.4 now, through a lot of hard work. So it's not a new number, and it's something that we'll continue to make strides to bring down as we've done. And even the priorities-based budget, the third budget that was shown, is something that was first presented in December as kind of the next landmarks that, as a district, we need to hit as we continue to move forward to reach that needs-based number. And so this is just reiterating the needs and the priorities of the district in a time where we may very well be looking at level services again, but acknowledging where we have come from, where we've gotten to, and where we still need to go. So I do think that's important to remind everyone. Mr. Storrs?
One more point, if I could. So, in the needs-based proposal, we talked about class sizes. I was just reading an article about how the data's in, and class size matters. This one show would be kindergarten at 18. 18 kindergartners in a room is already a handful. But the truth is, we're in a district where we have low 20s, mid 20s. Some of our classrooms may not be kindergarten, but throughout the district, high 20s. So it matters. That's why I want the difference between that needs-based and
what we're really going to be asking for is the difference between having classroom sizes in the, the low 20s and classroom sizes in the high 20s, and that matters. So yeah, I thought that was important to point out.
Mrs. Scales?
Thank you for, I know there's a lot of work to put together the priorities-based budget too, and that we had requested that as an extra one, and it was important for me to see the different breakdown. From the budget that was presented last time to this one, and I know you guys have made a lot of cuts and kind of trying to reach what you think is going to be projected. The high school looked like it took the biggest hit from what was presented last time to this time in the salary lines. And what was it that was?
Well, actually, the high school salary lines were similar. What we did, part of what we did, is we got very aggressive. And again, at some point, everything is a risk, and you just try to take the smallest risk. So we're making some assumptions on grants that we certainly hope will pan out, and that will relieve some of the benefit increase. Healthcare. So we decreased healthcare lines to reflect again a pretty aggressive posture on grants for next year. We lost about $200,000 apples to apples from last year to this year. So we're sort of hoping that doesn't happen again.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
A couple questions, Mr. Chair, and then a comment. If we can go back to slide number 8. Can you talk to me a little bit about what they triggered?
Two things. Both of them very aggressive. One is about $4 million of that is charter school tuitions, and I believe they exceeded rate increase 7%, 18 to 19.
And so that I think it was what, 700,000, 600,000 last year. So it's
almost 7 this year. Yeah.
Okay. So how much was it this year?
7.
Okay, so about 4.3, give or take, is charter school.
Yeah.
And then
there's another 100 in school resource officer and crossing guards.
Okay. And the charter school situation is challenging in terms of the reimbursement because, as some of you may or may not know, it's not based on per student, it's based on the overall number of students enrolled in charter school. So if the overall enrollment goes up 1, you get 100% for that year and then rapidly decreasing. So even if, as that number stays the same, that gives us a hit. And I think that's one of those areas that we really need to try to figure out. I know that Mr. Geddes has been advocating ardently to try to figure out why folks are choosing other areas, because that's a big hit. I'm curious about why those allowable expenses, at least part of that, didn't come out of Chapter 78, because I think that 30 million seems different than the way that we've calculated the minimum contribution before.
Well, yeah, the way DESE will do it is they'll establish your foundation budget, which is based on the enrollment and then the formula, and then they'll subtract the Chapter 70 funds, which they perceive as a grant. So you have your foundation budget minus your grant is essentially your minimum contribution. Now, the number we're showing is net of a bunch of credits. So it'll be very different than what you see on a DESE website.
And I guess what I would be interested in just is last way of calculating NSS.
It's net NSS. It's not the DESE.
Well, and I think that's an important clarification because to a certain extent there's a bit of double counting in my view. We're reducing the credits and that sets our new NSS number. But if you look at half the tax levy, the 884,000.
I look at the slide.
Not an insignificant amount. I just think for apples to apples comparison.
The contrary is
we don't
from the state or from that district.
So we would get that credit for that under the Chapter 70 form.
About
So.
7K or whatever it is that right? No?
Varies.
So it's less,
I
it's
think
five.
it's,
Yeah, it's capped.
yeah.
Capped at 5. And just for discussion purposes, how much do we estimate the cost is? I know it varies a lot because one student might be enough to put you over to require a new FTE, but generally, what do we estimate for the cost of a per pupil?
Well, again, if it's in a classroom in which you have seats, it's significantly less than that, which is why districts do it.
Okay.
You know, it's not